There's two things that I think no matter who you are, you'll always get the heebie-jeebies upon hearing them. It's just something that'll put anyone on edge. The first is if someone screams fire in a crowded space, like a movie theater or a concert venue. And the second is if you're told that a beloved video game franchise is getting adapted into a television program, which is just about as painful as getting caught in a fire. Video game adaptations are all over the place. The hits hit, and the shits shit. Like the Halo series, goodness gracious, what a stinky Methodist that was. Season 1 was made by people that were proud to have never touched the Halo games, so obviously the show was kind of doomed to fail from the get-go. Season 2 was a little bit better, albeit not great by any means, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all video game live-action series are bad. We just recently saw a good one with Last of Us, for example. So with Fallout coming out, I was kind of skeptical, but I knew there was a chance that it could be good, and the trailers looked pretty decent, but I wasn't really going to rip my shirt off and start twirling it over my head like I'm at Mardi Gras begging for beads, shaking my tits. Like, there was still a chance it could end up revolting and just trash. But now that it's released, I'm happy to say that's not the case, and if you've been on the internet over the last couple days, you'll see that the reviews for this are going gushing grannies for the Fallout series. And I think it's warranted. It's actually very good. Like, much to my and many others' pleasant surprises. I thought at best it would be decent, but it's actually pretty great, all things considered. I'll avoid spoilers here, but there's 8 episodes, all of which dropped on Amazon in one big batch, so they gave you the entire payload up front, which I've been very vocal, not a huge fan of the binge model. I'd prefer it was a weekly basis, because this just means it's going to fade out of people's minds much quicker than something like an Invincible, which is another Amazon series that they do release weekly. It keeps people talking about it, and it keeps everyone on the same pace, so you can reflect on each individual episode, speculate on where things are going, and digest it that way. I think it's a lot more fun, and it gives the series a longer runway in the public consciousness. So I think it was a bit of a fumble with just dropping it all at once, but there's people that swear by the binge model like it's a fucking religion. Like, they are really into being able to sit down and binge 8.5 hours worth of content all at once and then talk about it for a day and be done. Which is totally fine. I'm not your dad. I'm not gonna come in there and start like spanking your cheeks for liking something I don't. It's just I prefer the weekly model, because then you get to all be at the exact same point together and you get to talk about it, and it's a little bit more fun, at least in my personal opinion. But it's not that big of a deal. It's not like it has anything to do with the actual quality of the Fallout series. But I just wanted to mention that. Anyway, Fallout is very clearly made by people that are extremely knowledgeable on the games, and I think it's obviously because they brought aboard Todd Howard. They brought in Bethesda to work on this with them. This isn't a situation like with Halo where they're proudly oblivious to anything that happened in the established lore and they just make shit up, pull all kinds of garbage out of their butthole and throw it onto the screen. Here, they paid close attention to the continuity of the series. They paid very close attention to all of the lore that has been established in the Fallout universe, and they tell their own story within it, for the most part, that plays by all of the established rules. And I really like that. What should be common sense to everyone in the industry is a very rare delight, it seems, where if you bring aboard the people that helped create this property you're adapting, you get a much better product, because you're adapting with the actual creators on board to help steer the ship. Fucking mind-boggling concept, I know. Someone go ahead and tell all the other dog shit video game adaptations that this is the chemical X to the formula you need. Bring in the actual creators. I mean, this and One Piece, like, it should be pretty obvious by this point, yet we do still continue to get horrible adaptations in the space somehow. But anyway, Fallout is not a horrible adaptation by any means whatsoever. So the story really feels right at home in like a Fallout game. It's very reminiscent of Fallout 3, at least in the beginning, because it's very simple to start. You follow a vault dweller named Lucy, and some bad shit happens, and her dad gets taken, so she leaves the vault to find her dad. And of course, it gets a lot deeper than that. Obviously, it doesn't stay simple. It's a lot more than just finding Pops and getting them back home. You meet a lot of really cool characters right away, like the Ghoul, who I think really is a scene stealer anytime the Ghoul is on screen. And then you meet Maximus, the Brotherhood of Steel representative. And I just gotta tell you, one of the biggest compliments I can give this show is that they fucking nailed the aesthetic of Fallout. Every single frame of this show oozes Fallout. At no point did I ever get the impression that they're just doing some kind of bad cosplay. all of the sets, and especially the power armor, look phenomenal. I've seen a complaint from actual drones that are just trying their best to find things to hate about the show, saying that it's just nothing but references and that it never actually captures the ambiance of Fallout. What a bunch of hooey. Like that, there's plenty of things you cannot like about this show. I openly admit that it's not perfect, but that is one that you are actually making up a bunch of gobbledygook for. Because this show fucking nails the Fallout vibe. From its sets, to its costumes, to its world, to its writing, everything in this show is a slam dunk with capturing the feel of Fallout. Now, my favorite Fallout is actually Fallout 3, even though I recognize Fallout New Vegas is the best Fallout game, probably. I don't even know why I'm saying probably. I think objectively Fallout New Vegas is the best Fallout game. It is extraordinary, and if you check my channel, some of my earliest videos that started to like get shared elsewhere were Fallout New Vegas videos I was making because I put so much time into it. But there was something super special about Fallout 3 in particular that really sunk its fangs deep into my soul. Like, it captured me in a way that very few games had prior and very few games have since. Like, when that game came out, I spent that entire summer just basically doing everything possible in Fallout 3 and then some. I put so many hours into that game in one summer, it was like I was trying to train to be a fucking pilot. I put more hours into that than pilots do into flight simulators. I was going crazy with it. But I do recognize Fallout New Vegas is the best game in the franchise, to be honest. But the reason why I'm pointing this out is because when watching the show, it's very easy to see references and little Easter eggs to things directly from the game. But to say that the show is nothing but references is so fucking stupid. Like, actually brain dead to make that as some kind of complaint. Because this show is not just relying on cameos and references and fan service. It tells a really good story. It has beautiful presentation. Its visuals are extraordinary. And we'll get into even more compliments here in a minute. But there is so much more than just referencing the games. But as someone who puts so much time into a lot of the Fallout games, there are very clear little Easter eggs and references. But that's not at all the bulk of the show whatsoever. And it's ridiculous to even try and make the claim that it is. So I just wanted to point that out. But anyway, I think this show is going to appeal to pretty much everyone, even if you don't know that it's based on games or anything. Even if you have no idea what Fallout the franchise is, if you just see this come across your Amazon, you're like, I'll check it out. I think this show is going to hook you immediately. From the very beginning, the intro with the bombs dropping, breathtaking. I thought that was great. And the action is so violent and so gory, I was surprised. Like, I thought it would be pretty violent and gory given how Fallout goes, especially with VATS and everything, but I didn't think they'd really be able to capture the feel of VATS in live action. Boy howdy, I was very wrong. The very first time the ghoul gets into his gunfight in a town, where he just slaughters, brutally massacres like 20 different dudes, it is a thing of beauty. They do it masterfully with like slow-mo that doesn't feel like Zack Snyder Rebel Moon slow-mo where it's just useless and bloat. It feels so stylized. So he's got like his little gizmo, his little doohickey that's shooting these giant fucking like mini nukes almost from a pistol, like a revolver, and it's like piercing people and blowing their entire spine out their ass. Like half of someone's head gets blasted off in a collateral, and he's just like going around in circles like it's Deadeye out of Red Dead Redemption. It's so cool. They really nail the VATS system feel in live action. It was extraordinary. And I think that's going to hook anybody, even if you don't know it's supposed to be like VATS inspired. It was great. And like I said, I really do like the narrative here, and I really like the writing of the characters. None of the characters feel annoying. It doesn't feel like they're trying to just emulate some of the greatness that the games captured with some iconic characters. It feels like they really took the writing style of what worked in the Fallout games and made believable characters in live action here out of it. At no point, for example, Lucy, I never felt like she was annoying or anything. She's the naive vault dweller, and now she's in the surface world, and things are super different up here, and she conducts herself in a very peculiar manner. Like in the scene I'm mentioning with the ghoul, she's like, listen, sir, I don't know who the aggressor was, but I think we can all agree that maybe it's time you get out of here. Scram! Get out of town, or I'll be forced to use deadly force against you. That kind of thing. And it doesn't feel corny. It feels fresh. Like, it really does. However, this isn't necessarily in regards to character writing, but just general writing. There are so many plot conveniences that happen that you start to go, interesting. Like, it's important to take note that this is a huge world, right? Yet somehow, people are exactly where they need to be, when they need to be. And they keep coincidentally just like running into each other and fucking stumbling into the exact position they need to be in for the story to continue the way that it has. Like, I get that it's a show, but at certain points it was like, come on, are you fucking kidding me? You're telling me, like, in the middle of fucking nowhere you were able to find this and do that? Again, I'm trying to avoid the spoilers, but even by episode 2, I think many of you will know what I'm trying to talk about here. Maybe it's a stylistic choice. It's inspired by the video game's fast travel. So all the characters in the show can literally, like, fucking Goku instant transmission exactly where they want to be, immediately when they want to be there. Like, maybe it's on purpose. In fact, there was a couple moments towards the end of the season that did feel like they were like, all right, come on, let's start to finish this off here. We've got deadlines to meet. Let's start to really make a push to the finish line. Like, there are certain things, and I'm trying to avoid spoilers, that do feel like they are rushed towards the end. But I don't think that really takes away from the overall experience of the season either. It wasn't that detrimental, but it was a little sad to see that it did seem like it was trying to hurry itself along. But I don't have any major complaints about like the overall narrative of the show. However, I did decide to look into those that do, because there were a lot of people that were very vocal about how much they hated the direction the narrative went, which was a little surprising to me. And for the most part, what I'm seeing is people didn't like how it handled the New Vegas element of the show. This show fits in the Fallout universe, like I said. So New Vegas, I'm really trying to avoid spoilers, but New Vegas, it's here in a certain capacity. And a lot of people thought that the show was kind of spitting on it to a certain degree and kind of just like writing New Vegas off, or not really paying respect to what New Vegas canon like solidified to a certain degree. And I just have to disagree. Like, I really feel like the show, if it continues, is actually going to put a pretty big emphasis on that going forward. At least that's the impression I get. Like, I didn't really get what a lot of people are saying about how New Vegas was handled here as being a negative thing. At least not yet. I guess we'd have to see where the show goes going forward. But right now, I just really don't think they did anything wrong with it. At least nothing that would make me upset. And this is coming from someone who does love New Vegas, the game. So I really don't think they made any bad decisions with the lore. Now, of course, I'm not like a lore expert in Fallout or anything, so maybe there are certain things, like little tidbits that they messed around with. I saw a lot of people mentioning things about the NCR and how they didn't really handle the NCR properly in regards to their presence in the games and where they should be in the year that this takes place. And I guess that could be a very valid complaint, because again, I'm not entirely sure on the specifics of the timeline of the games and where everything fits. But for the show, everything really does work, and I feel like they're not backed into a corner where they can't fix certain things that might be a little out of whack with the timeline going forward. I feel like there's a lot of flexibility going forward with it if it continues. But actually, there is one narrative choice that they made that I didn't really like that much. I wasn't exactly pumping my fist when it came to a certain twist that they put out there that I'd never really seen present in any of the Fallout games, but maybe I'm just some kind of fucking stupid Neanderthal that sleptwalked through it. But this is going to be a minor spoiler. I'm not going to give like big spoilers, but it has to do with something in regards to vault tech and pre-war. And there's a certain angle that they hint at, play at, and go down in the show that doesn't really make sense to me given the state of the world of Fallout. Like, to me, it just doesn't work all that well unless there's like some kind of bigger galaxy brain scheme that I can't quite figure out. But when it comes to the world ending, I feel most organizations would probably look at that as a net loss, because then you can't really control as many people, you can't make as much money, you really lose a lot when the entire fucking world ends. It really wouldn't be the end-all be-all goal for pretty much any company, I would think. But anyway, I feel like I'm already giving away a little too much when it comes to that whole section there. But I did want to point that out because I didn't like that all that much. Maybe it'll be a bit deeper down the line, but for now I just thought that was a little silly. But overall, I do think the show is pretty extraordinary. This is another one of those video game adaptation bangers where they actually had a team that was passionate about it, a team that was knowledgeable on it, and delivered something great. So if I was to give Fallout a score on the moist meter, I'd probably slap that puppy with a cool 90%. Like, I really do think this is a show worth watching, even if you're not familiar with the Fallout games or the universe at all. I still think this is a show you're going to enjoy. It's hard not to like it, to be honest. No matter what familiarity you have with the property, it's just a really fucking cool show that's really well done. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah. I'm sure a lot of you have heard the hype around a new movie that just came out called Sinners. It's the best reviewed film of the year so far, and I think it's one of the best reviewed films of the last handful of years. It's getting more glazed than a Little Debbie's honey bun. People are going ballistic over it, and the question needs to be asked. Does it live up to the hype? Is it as good as people say it is? And can it beat Chicken Jockey? I'm the only one qualified to opine on this, and the answer is a resounding yes. I think it's a really, really good movie. It's a movie that explores a ton of different things, and it does all of it really well. Now let's get into the spaghetti and the meatballs. First and foremost, I think the trailers lead people to believe that it's something that it's not, a horror film. And this isn't a complaint or anything. I just feel like, I've talked about it on stream quite a bit, there's a lot of people under the impression that this is supposed to be a scary movie. I don't think that's the case. And this isn't me just being, grisly tough guy who doesn't get scared of anything. The only thing Charles fears is a day without getting pussy. I just personally don't think it fits into that category, and a lot of people, at least when I've talked about it, have written it off as just like a horror slop film, and that's just so disingenuous. Like, it's not a film that's trying to focus primarily on making the viewer fucking throw popcorn in their face out of fear and panic and wetting their britches. Like, that's not what the movie sets out to do. Like, yes, there's some unnerving scenes. They're there for a purpose other than just being boo to the viewers. There's like 2 or 3 jump scares in the movie, but just because they're jump scares doesn't automatically categorize it as a horror film. I've yapped about this for a minute here, but the whole reason is because I just don't like to see people write something off like this because they dislike horror films. I think this is a movie that a lot of people are really going to enjoy because it offers something very creative and very different. It is a film that, I don't think this is a spoiler because it is literally in the trailer, it builds on vampire lore in a really entertaining way that fits into a really well-written and very, very interesting story and set of characters. Like, the first half of this film is actually pretty slow. It's all about setting up these characters and getting you invested. So Michael B. Jordan stars in it, and he actually plays 2 characters, the Smokestack twins, and then the other main character is Sammy, who is one of their cousins. And they are about to open up a juke joint, and they're going to have a huge, grand opening, so we get to see the twins as well as Sammy getting involved in making this a really special opening, and we get to learn why the Smokestack twins want this to be so successful with everything that they had experienced in Chicago when they had initially left this area. And now they're back, they want to do something big, they want it to be profitable, and, things go tits up pretty quick when, towards the second half of the film, the vampires get introduced. And without getting into spoilers, the way that they use vampires here I think is really smart and different from what I've seen in other vampire movies. It of course uses like classic lore of needing to be invited in, which I always thought was one of the more humorous elements of vampires. But here, it's really tense when they play with that about, needing that invitation inside. Because if you don't invite them in, they're kind of fucking harmless. You can just kind of hunker down till the sun comes up. But it's not so simple. And I think they do a great job. It is amazing at delivering great character pieces and getting you actually to care about the characters that you meet. You get to see the relationship with Smoke and Stack with the various characters that get brought to the juke joint for the big unveiling and like the big, party. And really, everyone in here gave great performances, which obviously helps make you care. So by the time the vampires show up, you really don't want to see anyone get fucking slaughtered by them because you've grown to know quite a bit about these characters. They get pretty fleshed out. Now, one thing this movie puts a huge emphasis on is music. Sammy is an incredible musician. He is unbelievably talented with the blues. And that plays a pivotal role in the narrative. And how things happen with... I don't want to get into spoilers. But in order to talk about something that I think wasn't fully explored, I needed to get into spoilers. So here's your spoiler warning. Gonna get into spoilers briefly. Sammy's music is what draws that group of vampires to the juke joint in the first place. The main vampire, he wants Sammy because he believes that his music can help connect him to his old friends. And it's established very early on in the movie that sometimes a musician is so talented, it can, call upon the past and even the future. And there's a scene in the middle of the movie
where he's delivering an incredible performance at the juke joint. And while delivering that performance, there's like old musicians from many years ago. And then, and it's very cool to see, it's a very cool scene. And then it's modern musicians. So there's a musician playing the electric guitar, and then there's someone with a DJ turntable, and there's someone breakdancing. And it went from like really cool and like, oh, it's nice to see that concept they were talking about, like explored visually here. But then when I'm seeing them like spin the turntable while breakdancing, the scene kind of got like a little silly, and it went on for a long time. Now, narratively, it's a very powerful scene, and I get what it's talking about, and I understand why it's there. It's just, I feel like maybe it went on a little too long when they kept bringing in modern elements from the future there, because this is a movie set in the 1930s. So it just felt weird having like the turntable and the breakdancing, which it's supposed to feel weird, but in a way that I thought kind of got a little comical. Not a big complaint, but something I wanted to mention. What I think wasn't fully explored very well was the concept itself, though, because the movie talks about like music and how Sammy, who is the son of a preacher, he doesn't like the music. He thinks it's a bad thing. And it's something that Sammy very much disagrees with, obviously. And they talk about the music like it's supposed to be the ultimate tool for good, really. And ultimately what happens in the second half of the film, the music never really feels like it was used for good. So like he plays that song, The Vampires Come, and I thought it would end with him delivering another musical performance, because towards the end he is, gripping the guitar and he hits the vampire with it, and I thought it'd be something about music that's able to, save the day. But that's not the case. It wasn't the music that saved everyone, it was guns and wooden stakes. So, which is fine, because the action was really cool. Like, it was a good action sequence at the end. I thought they did a good job with it. It was bloody, over the top, and it was satisfying. But I don't know, I guess I just kind of expected, since it was a big part of the film, the music, about like, it's evil. No, it's not. Music is great. I thought that was going to be the moment where it triumphs and it shows the music is so powerful. Not only can it project, the past and the future, but look at how it can, heal and everything. And it helped defeat the vampires, but it doesn't actually help at all in, saving the day at the end. Which isn't the biggest deal in the world. It's not like a huge complaint of mine, but it is just something I wanted to mention. Overall, I think the film is really, really good. I don't have, like, actual big complaints about it. But I have also seen it been said by a lot of people that this is the best vampire movie ever made, or the best vampire movie made in, like, the last 10 years. I don't know about that. It's not really a vampire movie until, like, the end. Like, at the end of the film, the vampires come in, and even during those moments, it's not like it's all about the vampires. It's still mainly about the characters inside of the juke joint. So, like, I wouldn't say it's, like, the best vampire movie ever made. It just uses vampires really, really well. Anyway, though, I really like the movie, obviously. I definitely think it's worth seeing. That's about it. See ya.
Do my eyes look to have a little sparkle in them today? A little extra special sauce there? Well, it's because I finally saw a great film, snapping the stinker streak of Joker 2 and Megaflopolis. God bless. I saw Transformers 1. This has been one of the most highly requested things I've had all year. Like, second only to people requesting that I get taller or cut my hair. People really love this film. It has a lot of hype. And apparently it hasn't been performing that well at the box office, which is just a fucking shame. Because it lived up to the hype. I actually liked it a lot. I planned on seeing it 2 weeks ago when it came out, but unfortunately my ass was getting cooked like a Thanksgiving turkey by COVID. So I wasn't able to go, but I went and saw it today and I liked it a lot. I do think this is one of the better Transformers movies that's been made. Like, period. I'm not just talking about like animated Transformers. I mean, like, of all Transformers movies. It's just super solid. And I think the trailers and the marketing for this film did it a huge disservice. I think the reason why it hasn't gone like fucking Bazinga style at the box office is because a lot of people thought that this was purely a children's movie. Like, all the marketing material made it seem like something you'd see on, Disney XD. And that's just not really what it is. When the first trailer dropped, that's what I thought it was. I thought it was mainly like a kid's movie, which is fine, but it's not. The marketing team really did this dirty. Don't get it misconstrued, though. This isn't like some kind of R-rated, grim-dark universe Transformers films for adults only. You know, you're not going to have titties and blow and grease or anything here. You're not going to be watching Optimus Prime dealing with PTSD after witnessing war crimes or, you know, anything like heavy. But it is a film that can be enjoyed by anyone of all ages. Same way I feel about Puss in Boots Last Wish, Puss in Boots 2. That is a film that is just really good and just happens to be a family-friendly film. Now let's dive into the meat here. Transformers 1 is the origin story, basically, for Optimus Prime and Megatron. In this film, they're not Optimus Prime and Megatron yet. You see how they were like close friends. They started as fundamentally nothing. They were mining bots, and they go on this big buddy adventure, and it leads to what the characters eventually become. And what really works well for this movie is the characters are good. Not just Optimus and Megatron, but the surrounding characters as well. Like Bee, like Alita, like all of these characters are just fun. There's a lot of joke slinging back and forth, but not to like the criminally cringe level of Marvel where it's always there, even in moments that are supposed to be emotional. In this movie, yes, there is a ton of jokes. Yes, not all of them are going to land. But when there's an emotional beat, they don't bother to break it apart, wipe their ass with it like Marvel does by just throwing in like a little fucking half-baked AI-generated zinger. And I really appreciated that. That was very refreshing because I thought that's where this was going to go. It has a very simple plot, like it's nothing new. It's a story we've seen a million times, but now with Transformers. But it works super well because Optimus and Megatron, they build up that relationship really well in this film, and they tear it down really well too. So getting to like the climactic conclusion where we all know what's going to happen. We know what happens with Optimus and Megatron. They end up being at odds and they fight each other constantly. Getting to that point is such a good journey. There's a lot of really good action sequences in here, even like a really entertaining race that Optimus and Megatron enter, even though they can't transform. So they have to get really creative with how they try and win this race, and it's a huge fucking deal. And that entire sequence is really fucking fun. This is going to seem like an insult, but it did kind of remind me of Spy Kids 3D with that race, but done super well here. Like, I'm not using that to try and bring it down. It's just I love that, and that's always the first thing that pops in my head is that Spy Kids 3D race, that godforsaken sequence. But in Transformers 1, that race is so entertaining. Like, they're using jetpacks in the beginning. Then they're running on feet, but since they can't transform, they're getting fucking blasted by everyone. Then they have to use a couple of other really creative measures to try and get themselves back in the race. There's traps, there's obstacles. It's just a good ride. I've always had a soft spot for the Transformers property ever since I was addicted to Beast Wars as a kid growing up. So seeing a movie like this was just really refreshing. It really felt like a good time. And there's not a lot that I didn't like about it. Yeah, I wasn't, grabbing at my stomach like hearty har har laughing out loud at every joke or anything, but I was still highly entertained. And this is probably cope, but I'm hoping that now that we've had a movie about, the beginning of Cybertron and all that, maybe we can revisit games like War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron. Those games were such bangers, and it's a shame that they haven't received any kind of like remaster or anything. But I don't think that's gonna happen just because of this movie or anything, but I wanted to throw that out there. Those games fucking slapped. Anyway though, I liked Transformers 1 a lot. It lived up to the hype. I definitely think it's worth watching for sure. Even if you're not a fan of Transformers, it's a fun short movie, which is rare. You usually don't have any movies under 2 hours anymore. This one is not 2 hours, which is nice. It doesn't overstay its welcome. You get exactly what you want. A lot of action, a fun story, good characters, and it all looks great because the visuals are pretty top-notch for the movie. So yeah, Transformers 1, it was good. That's about it. So yeah. The Minecraft movie came out today, and for the first time in a very, very long time, I was the only person in a theater for this screening. I was the only poor soul subjecting themselves to the torture of the Minecraft movie on debut here. I cannot remember the last time this happened where there was nobody else in a theater with me. Like, last year I saw something called Bagman, which I guarantee none of you watching this have ever even heard of. It was this complete throwaway, probably AI-generated horror movie that I went and saw on debut, and there was still like at least 15 people there.
To have
It's fucking 5:30 on Minecraft movie day, a sacred holiday, and I am the only one in this theater. I'm not exaggerating.
Vice Principal Marlene.
There's zero people here except for me.
You probably heard that my husband
I could start yelling and screaming, I could start doing, and there's nobody here to hear it or see it. I felt almost ashamed. A 30-year-old man sitting in darkness watching the Minecraft movie all by his lonesome. My God. And the movie's not good, by the way. However, this movie doesn't feel like it's some lifeless husk put together by suits that are unfamiliar with the property they're adapting, like with the Halo TV series. It really does feel like everyone that worked on this film is very familiar not only with Minecraft, but the Minecraft community. There's a lot of references, there's imagery, and there's Easter eggs for things that the Minecraft community will absolutely recognize and really appreciate, which I think is a very cool thing. But unfortunately, the movie itself just doesn't do much in general. It really reminds me of what video game movies used to be back in like the early 2000s, before they figured out that they can make video game movies good. I understand it's a movie for children, but that doesn't mean that it has to suck. Like, it doesn't have to be terrible. And I understand I'm not like the biggest Minecraft gamer either. I'm very familiar with the game, I've played it a lot, but it's not my favorite game by any means, but still, I would expect to go into this movie and at least be entertained and understand that it's just supposed to be lighthearted, silly, and fun. It's just not fun. Like, I was so bored, I fell asleep twice. Not for a long period of time, I just kind of dozed off twice. A good chunk of the film feels like it's kind of just a tour of Minecraft, but on the big screen. It's clear they understand the game, it's clear that they've played Minecraft, because they spend a lot of time just explaining game mechanics in this movie. And then just saying things from the game. Chicken jockey! All that memes and shit. It's not as egregious throughout the whole film, but there are a lot of instances of that. Like, I really just don't see what all there is to love about this film. Even if you're 7 years old, still drinking warm milk out of a sippy cup, or the biggest die-hard Minecraft fan, I just think there's so little to like here, because most of the film really feels like it's more of just a demonstration of what Minecraft looks like on the big screen, and not much else. Like, I guess it's great for people that just want to point at the screen and be like, oh, I recognize that. That's a villager. I've played the game. Redstone, I know how it works. Like, because that's kind of what the film does. It just takes you from one of those to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, on and on and on, of just being like, you recognize this from the game, don't you? It's in the movie. And this is from the game, and it's in the movie. Like, there's barely even a story here. It's like the simplest, weakest story they could cobble together as just a vessel to push you to Jack Black explaining Minecraft mechanics over and over again. And all the characters in the movie don't really have any depth or anything. They're just like the flattest characters you could possibly put in here. They're just learning about playing Minecraft and not much else. Like, there's no real tension, there's no real stakes. At no point do you... I can't imagine anyone would feel invested in what's happening. And I know I've reached unk status where maybe I just don't understand the appeal, but the movie tries so hard to be memeable, even outside of like the Flint and Steel type shit. There's like 5 musical numbers, I don't know, maybe like 4, where Jack Black has like 4 different songs, all of which feel like they're aimed to try and get, you know, the kids up and out of their seat dancing to the Minecraft tracks and shit, which I didn't really like at all. Like, Jack Black as Steve, whatever, I don't care that much, as long as, like, it was entertaining. I just don't think it was. Jack Black doesn't even really play a character. He doesn't really, like, he's not Steve, as stupid as that sounds. He's basically, like, your tutorial guide. Like, Jack Black in this film is the NPC that would walk you through how to play Minecraft if you booted that shit up right now. If they had, like, a Microsoft Clippy version of it, that would be Jack Black's character. That's really all he does in the film. And then he has, like, a couple of, like, I believe supposed to be self-aware silly lines, such as, first we mine, then we craft, and shit like that, which, whatever. And the movie tries to also be, like, you know, with it. So there's a character named General Chungus, and his whole shtick is he talks very wacky, and he says at one point, really sorry, but I'm gonna have to unalive you now. Okay, General Chungus. Haha. For as much as I disliked this movie, not having fun watching it, I know this film is going to be extremely successful, and I am beyond confident that the target demographic, children and like really huge Minecraft enthusiasts, are gonna go ballistic for it. Because they're not really looking for a movie per se, like a good movie per se. They want to see something that they love in a different way. And Minecraft movie does offer that. You do see Minecraft in a different way, and it takes the mechanics and puts them in a movie. And I know it's gonna be really hype for a lot of people. I am not in that bucket. That was not hype for me. I wanted something fun to watch. Like, it has been proven many times in recent memory that you can do really good video game movies. The Super Mario Bros. Movie, for example. I don't know why they wouldn't follow suit there. That was still very true to the games while also being a really good movie in its own right. This ruins the magic to a certain extent of, like, Minecraft. Like, there's nothing creative about it. They just take some humans and haphazardly throw them into the Minecraft world. And also, immediately in the intro, they just fucking blast you with so much exposition and immediately just say, like, and then they go to Minecraft. Now they're in Minecraft. It's like, whoa, okay. I feel like there was definitely a more enjoyable way of getting to that point. Now, this movie does do something really well, I think. And that's the visuals of Minecraft. Like, I actually think all of the animation here with the Minecraft characters, the big bad, even the way that the characters fight each other, looks good. Like, it actually looks really good. I thought the world looked cool. When it falls apart is when you take live action people and you have to green screen them into that world. Then it just looks like shit, which is one of the huge critiques people had for all the trailers because it looked really lackluster. Sorry to say, in the film, there is a lot of instances where it looks really lackluster because of having to just put them in front of a green screen where they're running at the screen while some Minecraft stuff is happening behind them with flaming arrows coming their way and shit. Like, that's just lame. I feel like would have been significantly more entertaining if it had all just been in that style with no live action. I really think that would have been a lot better. And one other thing I think is good and that I appreciated is that I really felt that Jack Black and Jason Momoa really tried to bring a special kind of flair to their characters. They didn't just phone it in with a lazy performance and go through the motions. To me, it felt like they really did try to breathe life into it and make it fun. And for me, it didn't work because I just wasn't entertained by the film, but it's not for lack of trying on their part. But anyway, yeah, not the worst video game movie that's ever been made, but definitely not a good one either. That's about it. So, yeah. Here's another movie I wasn't planning on reviewing, but because I keep getting asked a lot about it, I'll go ahead and give it a little review here. It's the new Predator movie, Killer of Killers. It's the animated, almost pseudo-anthology in the Predator universe. I put my peepers on this puppy right when it dropped, and I liked it. I thought it was fine. I just didn't have a whole lot to say about it, so I didn't bother spitting out a review on all of my deep thoughts in regards to Killer of Killers. But I get asked about it pretty often during streams since it's come out, so might as well just give the review on it anyway. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's perfect, but I thought for what it was a fun ride. So I thought it looked good, and I thought the action was good, and it's mainly just action. It's not that deep. There's a lot of nods to previous Predator movies, which I appreciate. There's definitely some problems with the story, though, which I guess I can talk about. Also, I hate the name. I said it when they first dropped the trailer. The name Killer of Killers, I think, is extremely silly. It reminds me of those Facebook Joker memes. Fuck the fuckers before they fuck you. That kind of shit. That's the kind of vibe the name gives, but it's kind of charming in its own way because it fits the vibe of the movie. So basically, the movie tells a pseudo-anthology, 3 separate short stories. One a Viking woman who loses all of those closest to her because of a predator attacking them. The second being in feudal Japan with a Ronin who, after trying to get revenge on his brother, gets interrupted by a predator's strike, and then he has to fight that. And then the third being a pilot in World War II, and then it's a dogfight between him and a predator in their spacecraft. And the stories aren't bad. There's a couple of emotional beats in the first two. The third one, I think, is by far the worst. It's kind of devoid of, like, anything. It almost feels like a complete joke. Like, the pilot is supposed to have these moments that are supposed to be, like, intense, but he's, like, really quippy, and it doesn't seem like he's taking anything seriously while hunting and being hunted by the predator. Like, he's not even really hunting him, to be fair. He's just kind of trying to survive. But even, like, his survival is just him quipping like he's a fucking Marvel character. And, like, when people close to him die, he doesn't, like, he brushes it off real quick. It, like, doesn't really affect him. I don't know. That one I thought was really weak. The action was still cool there, but the actual narrative beats of that part I thought were bad. The first two I thought did a good job. The Viking mother who loses her son and has to fight against this, like, giant predator. This guy's been boofing his muscle milk. She fights him, and it's a really flashy, fun fight. And then the one in feudal Japan where the Ronin squares off against the Predator, that's like a tag team match against that one. That one's also very cool, and I actually thought the narrative in that was very interesting. Then it ultimately leads to the finale where these three characters come together, and they are supposed to fight to the death in order to fight the Predator King. And honestly, I don't love the finale. Like, it's not terrible, like, it's still flashy, it's still fun, but you have these three characters that have been on ice for however many years, hundreds of years, and now all of a sudden they're thrown into the Thunderdome here to fight each other, to then fight the Predator King, and somehow they band together, even though they can't understand each other's languages. They overcome their differences, they team up, then they fight the Predator King, they win against him, and then somehow that pilot from World War II knows how to fly the Predator spacecraft to get them out of there. It just feels really rushed. It feels kind of ridiculous, even in the context of an animated film. I know how fucking absurd that sounds for me to call something in an animated film like preposterous, but it is, I think, a bit wacky here. I think it goes a little Insano style to its own detriment. Like, if they had just done the three stories here, the three short stories, for the whole movie, I would have been much happier with that. Like, give them even more time, because the first two, I think, did a great job with the character development and the story they tell there. Third one, maybe if you cooked that a little bit longer, you could have had something more compelling there, too. But overall, those three stories, I think, were really enjoyable. The finale, though, I don't know, I was just left kind of disappointed. It's a really cool concept. Like, I do really like the concept, and I do want to see more from, like, the Predator home world and, like, their culture, because it seems a little wishy-washy on how much honor actually means to them, because it kind of just changes all the time. Like, sometimes they'll prove themselves so formidable that the Predators will drop down to a knee, madame, tipping fucking fedora, that kind of thing, or even, like we've seen in the past, like, kind of just let them go, or even try and make the fight as fair as possible. At the end of this movie here, though, they kind of wiped their whole ass with that entire thing. Like, even when they are victorious and they escape on the ship, the Predator King sends, like, the entire fleet after them. And also, like, where are they even going to go? The World War II pilot doesn't even know when or where they are in the fucking universe. Like, I don't know. It was just, I didn't really like the ending. It felt extremely rushed. I think it would have been far stronger to just have the three short stories and just stretch them out a little bit longer, add more to them in order for it to be the whole movie. And maybe you could do, like, some kind of tie-in, because I do think showing, like, the Predator world with, like, every strong warrior on ice is really cool. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I'm sure that's going to be explored going forward. But I just didn't really love the finale. Even the action in the finale, I think, was weaker than all the action they had shown in the three short stories. At the end, it felt more like just doing anything they can to tie this into whatever their plans are with this IP going forward, as opposed to giving, like, a proper conclusion to the movie that they were making here, like the story they were telling and building up to. So I do think that fell kind of flat. But overall, I think Killer Killers was good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm happy we're getting so many high-quality animations coming out in the recent years here. It's great. I like to see that. hope to see more. I hope it continues. So yeah, I mean, I think it was good. Hopefully Predator Badlands is also good. I will say there were some things in the trailer I didn't love, but this made me more optimistic for it. You know what, there is actually something I wanted to dive in on, and it's not even particularly just about this movie, but Killer of Killers has a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, at least it did as of June 8th, making it the highest rated Predator franchise entry ever. And this is something Matt and I were talking about 2 days ago. It feels like everything that comes out that's good or even great is always like cherished and worshipped as the best to ever come out. Just think about how frequently you've seen these kind of headlines over like the last 5 years. A good movie will come out and all of a sudden it's God's gift to cinema. This is an extraordinary piece of art here. Longlegs, scariest film ever made. The highest rated Rotten Tomatoes debut for a horror film ever. And then 2 months later, you see those same accolades recycled on a totally different horror movie, also like a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. It just feels like we are in an era where it just has to be extreme. Like something can't just be good or even great. It has to be the best. We have to glaze it like it is the best that has ever existed, and everything that came before it is lesser. I just think it's a little absurd. Killer of Killers. Is it a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes good? No. I definitely don't think so. Even though I liked it, I really enjoyed it, I definitely don't think it's up there with some of like the all-time greats. Is it the best movie in the Predator franchise? No. I also don't think so either. Like, it's good, and because it's good in the current day and age, that means it is pushed to its absolute limits in terms of praise. Like, it is just glazed out the wazoo to the point where it's just the highest rated. I know this is a pretty worthless rant here. It has nothing to do with the actual movie or anything. I just wanted to briefly mention it because this seems to be pretty commonplace these days about like something of quality comes out and then all of a sudden everyone's saying like it's actually the best ever. Sometimes I think they're absolutely right. Example, Andor. Andor I think is the best thing Star Wars has like ever had. I think Andor is one of those rare cases where all of that glaze I think is like super appropriate. I think they're like right on the money with it. It is that good. Anyway though, I'll stop yapping. Killer of Killers was a good animated film. I enjoyed it. That's about it. So, yep. Yeah, it's pretty good. I know I've become a bit of an old curmudgeon who just doesn't really like superhero films. I don't really get excited to see them, but I did actually have some level of optimism for Thunderbolts because it looked a little different in the reviews on it. Jiminy Christmas, I think it was like the second highest rated Marvel movie ever, or somewhere in that general ballpark, at least for some period of time. I don't know if it still is. But heavens to Betsy, sports fans, I tell you, with the way people were salivating over this one, I half expected to go into theater and have this movie rim me out. And now that I've finished watching it and I'm back in witness protection facility here, I can comfortably say this is not a top 3 Marvel movie ever made. Like, it's a good movie. I did enjoy watching it, but I think the hype is a little overblown now. And I'm not going to sit here and try and armchair psychologist you like a Redditor, but I'm going to spitball a theory that I think the reason people are so excited about this movie is because it's finally a new Marvel film that doesn't feel like you just wasted your fucking money going to see it. Like, a lot of them have just felt truly worthless and just like they have nothing to offer. This one is a good film, but I don't think it's like this masterpiece that's now started the golden age of Marvel films again. But it is a breath of fresh air in what has become a very stale set of films over the last few years, with a few exceptions, like obviously Guardians 3. But yeah, overall, it's solid. Now let's get into it a little bit. As you can tell from the trailers, you follow a ragtag team here with characters you're familiar with, but don't know all that well, such as Ghost, from one of my least favorite Marvel movies ever, Ant-Man and the Wasp. So the film already has its work cut out for you to make you care about someone that you just don't, like Ghost. And I actually think it does a good job at doing that because this movie focuses more on like the emotional aspects of these characters and the trauma they've been through and how that binds them together and how they can work together as a team to try and overcome what seems to be an undefeatable enemy with Sentry/Void. This isn't spoilers, you can get all that from the trailers. That's the premise of the film. They all come together in a way that's both silly and pretty exciting, where they're fighting each other. And the fight between all of them is really cool. And you know who else makes an appearance in here? Taskmaster, from everyone's favorite Marvel hit, Black Widow.
Every time I think of that movie, I can't help but mention just how absolutely fucking absurd it is that the main villain's power was just being stinky. He smelled, and the smell that you smell, that smelled smelly, made you not want to hurt him. In fact, it made you unable to hurt him. So how do you get around that? Whereas a force field of odor? Well, you stop smelling it. So, spoiler alert for Black Widow, she breaks her nose and then she's able to hurt him. Wow, that was awesome. And Taskmaster's in that movie and completely ruined by it. And does Thunderbolts use Taskmaster better, finally giving redemption to what is otherwise an extremely cool character in the comics? Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Absolutely fucking not. It's even worse than I anticipated. Everyone who saw the trailer immediately theorized that Taskmaster was going to die early as like a show of force from the main villain, Void. It's not even that. Taskmaster dies for literally nothing. In the first 20 minutes, in the first fight scene, Taskmaster just eats a bullet right to the fucking noodle. And that's the end of Taskmaster. She just gets put down immediately. Her death served no greater purpose. It kind of became a joke for a little minute. Then they made a brief mention of how Taskmaster had a rough life, and that was it. I don't know who has a grudge against that character, but they really made it clear they fucking hate Taskmaster. Anyway, I immediately jumped into a critique here, but overall, I did like the movie. I do think it's overhyped, but I do appreciate that the film is a little different from most Marvel projects where it does dive into darker subject matter, like drug addiction, like suicide. And it shows you what all of these characters are going through and how they're all dealing with it in their own individual ways. And I think that's a very cool thing to do for these characters. And in turn, over the course of the film, you see them develop. You see them start to have a stronger bond to each other. And it's a film that finally focuses more on like the character development of the cast, and the performances in it definitely helped. I thought pretty much everyone did a good job here overall. And I really enjoyed the choreography of the action scenes early on. They were creative with everyone's powers. Even Ghost finally had some time to shine, because I think Ghost has cool powers. Basically, Obito from Naruto. She's able to like phase through shit and have things like go through her and all that. Like, it's cool. And it was nice to finally get to see them get creative with that. Really, all the characters got that treatment, except Taskmaster, that God rest her soul. But like, you know, Walker got it. Yelena was also really hype. Red Guardian, not so much. He was kind of just like the brute force tank of the group. He didn't have a whole lot of choreography. It was mainly just like yell and like charge and kind of like get big, and then sometimes a couple haymakers and some of this, which is fine because that fits his character really well. Like, I do like what they did with all the characters in all of the action moments. Bucky was super badass. So I do think they did great with the action. But I think it's important people know going in that Thunderbolts isn't really that kind of superhero film. It's not like a traditional superhero film where, like, they beat the villain through force or through clever tactics or anything like that. The action kind of stops happening after the first half. Like, yes, there's a fight scene towards the end with Sentry, but it's very simplistic. Like, it's just very much a one-sided thing with not a whole lot more to it, and then there's no fighting left. So if you're going in here expecting a lot of action, you'll get that to a good extent in the beginning, but not towards the end, because this is more of like a drama around these characters in this world and what they've been through, and the message it wants to get across, of course, being, you know, being alone sucks, but you're not alone. Now, Yelena, I think, was good in this movie. She's obviously, like, the main character here, but the most interesting character, I think, is Bob. I really think he's one of the more interesting characters in the MCU at this moment, and I think they did a good job with this character, and I'm really excited to see where they take him. There's no way I can get into some of the things I want to talk about without spoilers, so we're diving back in again to spoilers. These are some big ones. Spoiler warning. I think the film is extremely predictable with how it all wraps itself up. If you watch my streams, you'll know I made a prediction on how they beat someone as powerful as Sentry/Void. I was very close. I was almost right on the money with that prediction. They, of course, could never beat him in real combat. They instead had to match him emotionally. And, of course, the whole theme being about how this guy, Bob, is, you know, he's gone through a lot with addiction, depression, and everything that he's experienced. He had a really rough childhood. His upbringing was bad. And he feels so alone, thus Void. Well, they solve it with an anime lesson in the power of friendship. And
to me, that just felt like it fits. It obviously fits, but having it be a group hug at the end that defeats Void just feels really unfulfilling and very much like kind of how Soul Eater ends with a friendship punch. It feels just a little underwhelming, but it's not that bad because, again, this isn't a film that's supposed to show you how strong these characters are and what they're capable of doing and how they could stack up against all of the Marvel greats from the past Avengers or anything like that. It is more of a character piece in showing their development and how they come together and form a family, which is something all of them so desperately want. And I do think it does a good job of getting there, but with how dark a lot of the subject matter that it tackles here and it talks about, it just felt kind of a little too on the nose about, like, if we all hug, we're no longer alone and Void is defeated. So, I don't know. Again, it was fine. It wasn't, like, bad or anything. I just felt like there was probably more they could have done there because through the power of family and friendship, they defeat the undefeatable and undoes all of the death and destruction that was caused. It literally just, like, brings everyone back instantly. But one other thing I want to briefly mention is that even though every character is given some level of depth and fleshing out on the things they've been through and their trauma, I do feel like a couple of the characters don't really get a chance to do much. Most notably, Ghost, and to a lesser extent, Walker. Walker gets a little bit more to do. Not a ton more, but a bit more. Ghost kind of is just a character that's in the background a lot in the second half of the film. Like, yes, she still contributes. Yes, she's still present for everything, but she doesn't really play a role in a lot of the things that start developing. And I was expecting more out of Walker because in the beginning, he was like the big asshole guy who was, squaring off against Bob and busting his balls and stuff. And then that just vanishes pretty quickly. He stops being that guy. And then when he stops being that guy, he kind of just gets sidelined like Ghost for the second half of the film. So it's not the biggest deal in the world because when you have this many characters and you're trying to, develop all of them and give the audience a reason to care about them, like, some of them are going to get more attention than others, like Yelena obviously being, like, the main character. So I get it. It's just something I wanted to mention. It would have been nice to see them also get some more attention in the second half, but not that big of a deal. But anyway, I liked Thunderbolts. It was refreshing to finally get something a bit different than we've been getting served the last few years of just forgettable mediocrity. This was finally something that I definitely think was worth seeing. That's really about it. See ya.
Still, to date, one of the biggest surprises I've ever had going to a horror film was actually enjoying the first Smile movie. I went into that thinking that it might just be fun bad, but that it stood no chance of being anything even close to decent. Because it had like a TikTok influence and this and that. I thought the odds were stacked against it, but I walked out of that theater smiling. Like, I thought it was just so good. Like, it was such a pleasant surprise. It takes a super generic concept that I had already seen a movie like in the past. Truth or Dare did something very similar with, like, the smiling right before death thing. And I thought this would just be another one of those throwaway slop horror films that I'd forget about 15 seconds after leaving the theater. But nah, Smile stuck with me. It's not like those other things where they just throw together something shitty, a few jump scares, and call it a wrap, something like The Bag Man, or any of those other awful premises. Because everything gets a horror film these days. Literally the dumbest ideas ever get horror movies because they're cheap to make and usually turn a profit. So you have some shit come out like The Backwards Walk Man. If you see his cheeks coming at you, it's already too late. If his butt's facing you, you're already dead. But all this to say, I liked Smile. So I had a lot of expectations here on Smile 2, probably unfairly so. Yet, it exceeded them. Smile 2 is actually better than the first one. And people in stream chat that had seen it yesterday were telling me that much. They were saying that Smile 2 is actually better than the first one. And I agree. There are things I liked more in the first one, but overall I think Smile 2 is just a stronger film in general. So let me just go ahead and start glazing it like a donut real quick, but I do want to talk about some complaints that do get a little spoilery, but I'll get to those towards the end. Before even really getting into the meat of this, I do want to make a mention up top here, because I have to know that I'm not crazy. Like, maybe I'm possessed by a fucking sound demon or something, but this is the loudest movie I've ever heard in my life. I saw Smile 2 in a Dolby screening, which I've done for tons of movies that have come out, and I've never had something be this loud. Like, I'm talking anytime something happens on screen, it's like 5 sticks of dynamite get shoved into my ears, like it's some kind of Tom and Jerry gag. Like, even something like the main character opening a can of mints sounded like 5 dump trucks being thrown off of a cliff into a pile of broken glass and nitroglycerin. Everything was so loud. Now, I think the sound design and the audio was great in the film. I think they did a really good job with it. Like, I do want to make it clear, like, I think they crushed it in the sound department, but like, maybe the levels were a little too high in the theater I was in or something, where it became, like, actually painful. Like, there's a scene in the very beginning where a guy throws a sword, and it was already really loud, but he throws that sword, and holy shit, it was like I was back at a club standing in front of the speaker. Like, that sword hits the ground, and it was like someone clapped their hands against my ears. Like what Jackie Chan would do in a kung fu movie to stun someone. It was crazy how loud some moments were here. Now, first and foremost, if you haven't seen the first Smile movie, you should know that Smile is built upon tension and jump scares. It has an unapologetic use of jump scares. It's not ashamed, and it actually gets very creative with the jump scares. Most of the time, when someone tries that shit with like a boo and like a really loud noise, like I'll just sigh and roll my eyes. It's really not exciting, and it's kind of lame. And for a long time, people have criticized horror movies' reliance on jump scares for its scare factor, and rightfully so, because it is lazy. Smile 2, though, and the first Smile by extension, they take jump scares and they use them so well. So they build tension, effectively build tension. And instead of like releasing the tension with a jump scare, it just keeps building the tension, and you're like hoping for a jump scare, and then when it comes, somehow you're still not expecting it, and it hits. It actually hits. Their jump scares here are so creative. Now, they don't reinvent the condom with them or anything. The jump scares still have like the loud noise, scary face kind of thing going on, but the way that it's utilized is so good. It's like a pick and roll in basketball. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows pick and rolls are coming, but if you know how to use them well, holy shit, are they effective. And I think Smile 2 uses jump scares super well because it does the hard stuff of building tension and actually getting you invested and like kind of on the edge of your seat this whole time. So because of that, they're able to put a jump scare in there and have it not be cringe. And another thing that helps is characters that you actually care about. So when you're watching Smile 2, I think Naomi Scott does an incredible performance here. Like, she has mastered the teardrop coming from her eyes with like 1,000-yard stare in shock, and she just sells the peril and like the hopelessness and the fear so well. Really, everybody in the movie does. Like, I was really surprised by how good everyone's performance was in the movie. So I did want to make a special note of that. Like, the characters do have you invested, and it's not like they give you a ton of information about them. Like, they're not fully fleshed out characters, but what's there is enough. Now, the movie follows pretty much an identical storyline to the first one, almost beat for beat, which is one of my complaints. I wish they had done more with maybe giving us a little bit more on, you know, the actual monster itself. Like, I understand keeping it a mystery, that is the most effective thing you can do with it, but it really does follow almost the exact same roadmap that the first one laid out. It just follows it better, like it's a more exciting ride. But I do wish they had explored other ideas a bit more. So our main character is a troubled pop star who's gone through something traumatic in the past. She's had issues with substance abuse, and she unfortunately watches one of her friends kill himself with the smile demon possessing him, which passes it on to her. This is all in the trailer. This isn't a spoiler or anything. So now it's her battling against this evil. And a lot of the things that are in place narratively were the same things that were in place in the first film, which is fine because it works and it's good. But like I said, I wish they explored a couple of other ideas and maybe did a little bit more with the universe and world building. But to counter my own complaint here, like I'm in fucking debate club, they did do something very different for the intro of this movie. They did a single take, one continuous shot action sequence. Like, I'm talking guns blazing, knives out, blood, gore, like all of that action sequence that felt like I had wandered into the wrong film for a moment. It was good. Like, they did a great job with that whole sequence. And it's very interesting how it ties into the rest of the movie. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I thought that was exceptional, and that had me hooked immediately. I just wish they had more moments like that where, like, it didn't stay the exact same course as the first film. But it's not like the biggest complaint because it still worked very well. I still really, really liked this movie. And since I mentioned that intro sequence, I do want to just point out the cinematography in this movie, I thought stood out. Like, I thought there were some really creative shots. Like, there were some really good shots and some good spins on some, like, classic shots that you've seen a million times in other horror movies that you just wipe your ass with in those films. Well, here they take those same kind of shots and they put like a nice little creative spin on it that works super well, that helps elevate the whole thing. Especially considering that a large part of Smile is playing with people's perception of what's real and what's fake. Since the Smile demon gets inside of the victim's brain and starts pulling levers and shit like that worm out of Courage the Cowardly Dog, it is changing what is real and what's fake, as well as just the flow of time. Like, how long has it been? Which is really fun as someone watching the film trying to figure out what's real and what's fake. Oh, that must have been real because of this. If it was fake, then how the fuck did she end up over there? You know, that couldn't make any sense if it was fake. No, how could that possibly be fake when I have a boner? That doesn't add up, you know? Like, it's a fun little game that the audience gets to play of figuring out, well, what's in her head and what's reality. And the film plays with that super well. And I think the way that it's shot helps with that too. And it's something I really appreciate. I really like the narrative to this, even though it is just kind of retreading the first one. I just still think it hits. And I like the pop star spin on it because then she's constantly surrounded by people in public. It allows for some really interesting new kind of horror scares that they try. Because in most horror films, you have the standard like haunted house shit or just like really dark shit. Smile 2, pretty much all the scary stuff happens in broad daylight, lights on. Almost nothing happens in the dark. And that's pretty fun. That's pretty cool. I also was a little worried that the pop star angle would be overplayed a bit in this film, where it focused too much on like pop music and like musical performances and stuff, and I thought it would take away from the rest, the shit that people actually care about, which is the horror. It doesn't. The pop music does clearly play a role here, but it doesn't like overstay its welcome or anything, and when the songs come on, like, it's fun, and usually something happens during it. So it's not like it's a totally separate thing. Kind of like in Trap, one of the big critiques I had of it is that it felt more like a concert first and foremost before like a movie. I was a little concerned that maybe this might have something similar. No. The pop music is there. It's a small portion, and it's not like overused or anything. It's not like the bread and butter of the movie by any means. So if anyone was worried about that, let me just go ahead and put your mind at ease there. I think Smile 2 is just really, really solid. I thought it was fucking great. But I do want to get into a few complaints now. I already mentioned the one where I feel like it was just kind of the same thing again, but better. That is still one that I have, but my biggest complaint is actually the ending. But I just feel like the movie's ending was the most predictable ending that you would have imagined when you saw that the character was a pop star. And it's something tons of horror movies have done in the past. That, well, now the genie's really out of the lamp and everyone's got it. The bad thing's everywhere now. And I just don't like that. I think that is so overdone. I recognize that when it comes to Smile, there's nothing necessarily new about it. It just executes everything better than what else came before it. However, in this ending, I don't think it did it better. It did it the same as tons of other horror movies that end with Pandora's box is open, now everyone's affected. It just did that, and not really in a new way. So I was kind of underwhelmed there. I get it conceptually, like it's a strong conclusion. I just couldn't help but feel less than satisfied. Especially when you consider that the ending of the film also nullifies a lot of the film's best moments. This is a big spoiler. I'm going to try and tiptoe around it as to not ruin this. But the way the movie ends, it kind of rewrites and undoes a lot of the best scenes from the film, like retroactively. And that kind of sucks. Like, it kind of takes the wind out of its own sail, which I just really didn't like. You know how everyone hates that trope, that cliche of, it was all a dream, that kind of thing? Well, I felt the same way with the ending of this movie. I just really felt like, man,
that really kind of takes a lot of the impact away, what you've just done here. So hopefully I didn't like say too much there that spoiled it for anyone, but I just felt really let down a bit by the direction the ending went. Like, I'm talking the very end, like the last 5 or 6 minutes, like not long. I think everything up until like the last 5, 6, whatever minutes was so strong. And narratively, I even think the last 5 and 6 minutes is a strong conclusion, like from a plot perspective, but from a viewing perspective, it just really feels like, man, that really does take away a lot of the fucking oomph with what we had been experiencing up until this point. So that's by far my biggest complaint, but I don't think it like makes this movie that much worse in my eyes or anything. I still think this is a great film. I still think it is better than the first one. So overall, I think Smile 2 is 100% worth seeing. I think it is so good. So I definitely recommend it. I liked it a lot. And yeah, that's about it. So, yeah, I'm happy to say they finally done it. They've finally not ruined an IP with a terrible adaptation. At least not yet. We're only 1 episode in, but I'm already twirling my shirt over my head right now because the first episode of The Last of Us show wasn't unwatchably, insufferably horrible like most adaptations are these days. It was actually good. Finally, we've got another adaptation that is faithful to the source material and also not an absolute stinky pile of garbage. Again, we're only 1 episode deep, so there's still plenty of time for them to fly off the rails and ruin it. Maybe in episode 2 they start introducing aliens, episode 3 they bring in ghosts, like they could fully tank this show, but right now episode 1 is absolutely fantastic. And this has been kind of a roller coaster for me because when the first trailer dropped, I was cautiously optimistic that it'd be good, but then the more the showrunner spoke, the less confident I became. They did the worst PR run for this show I could have imagined. The showrunner would say things like, oh, dying in The Last of Us game is just pixels on a screen. It's going to be so much different in the show, and like kind of belittling the property, like the source material, for no reason. And then they'd also celebrate the fact that they instructed their talent to not play the games for some reason. Just a lot of things they'd say that made me scratch my head and go, why would that make me excited as a fan of the first Last of Us game? I still don't get that Galaxy Brain strategy, this like chess master's PR move where like the way to get people hype is by letting people know that they didn't play the games. I don't get it. Like, hey, Last of Us fans, we made sure none of our talent played the games. Hoorah! You know, it just doesn't make sense to me. But regardless, despite all that, they pulled it together and made an absolutely spectacular episode 1. And it's so refreshing because you may remember, you know, in the Bible there was that period where the Lord flooded the earth. Well, we've right now entered that age again, but instead of flooding the earth with water, he's flooded the earth with absolutely dog shit adaptations from other IPs that are beloved. So we've had things like the Halo show, the Resident Evil Netflix show, Witcher Blood Origin, Velma, like it just doesn't stop. And now we have a new adaptation that's not shit. Like, it, you know, the flood may be over. Maybe we're finally going to get to an era where adaptations are faithfully done. And it's not like this is the only one. There have been some great ones recently, like Arcane as well as Cyberpunk Edge Runner. But the point is, this one's great, and I'm happy about it. I've said from the beginning it'd be very hard to fuck up a Last of Us show if you just follow the game 1-to-1. And for the most part, they do follow it pretty 1-to-1 in certain cases, but they add a lot of their own elements to the show, so it's not just a carbon copy of the game. And I actually really liked a lot of what they put into this. It wasn't just like ham-fisted, useless details that don't matter. They really crafted quite a bit to flesh out the universe pre-breakout. Like, they build the world around it pretty well. Like, they give context of like the fungus and stuff where it goes back to an old interview going over things. They then also transition into showing the relationship between Joel and Sarah more. In the game, it's an iconic intro, and I still think the intro is the best that gaming has to offer. The Last of Us intro is a masterpiece, and the show does a fucking amazing job of capturing that and also bringing you to it. In the game, it gets very quickly to the truck, you know, going through the city and all the chaos and all that. It takes you into the action pretty quickly because it's a game, and they don't want the player to get bored or start to lose interest. Usually when a game's really heavy-handed on cutscenes, some people like to whine and complain like,
oh, this shit is just watching a movie. It's just an interactive movie, not a game. Boo, throwing tomatoes. So the game quickly gets you to like the action parts to get the player hooked and interested. Well, the show has the benefit of not needing to worry about that kind of bitching, so it actually spends a good chunk of time just showcasing Sarah and Joel's relationship as well as focusing on things that Sarah was doing right before the breakout happened. And I think that really adds to the overall like greatness of that iconic intro because the show, I am so happy to say, follows that intro really well. It puts the camera in the truck, just like in the games, as they're driving through, you know, all kinds of like fucking wild shit's happening around them, people getting blown up, eaten, things going to shit everywhere, and it's capturing that insanity, that madness, all from the perspective of inside the truck. And it is fucking great. I'm super happy they didn't try and get like stupid with it and try and make it something different. Like, I'm glad they just took what the game did and made that magic happen again in the show's format. I think they did a really great job with the intro. I have legitimately zero complaints about how all of that played out. That was one of the big things I was worried about. Like, how can you possibly recreate that scene in a show and do it even nearly as well as the game? But they did. I'd say it's on par with the game's intro for sure. Now, there was one other major change that they announced they'd be making in the show that is very different in the game. And a lot of people were pretty upset about it, but I was pretty indifferent. And now seeing it in the show, I do think the change is fine. That was their decision to remove spores entirely. If you played the game, you know the role spores play. In the show, they're not using spores. Now they're using like these little tendrils, like these little feely finger things that pop out of their mouth and they transmit the infection to each other like that. But it's not spores anymore. And I don't really care. It doesn't change things drastically, in my opinion, to have it be little fucking wieners popping out of their mouth like tickling people for the infection versus it being the spores. I didn't care too much when I heard that, but I know a lot of people were upset. After seeing in episode 1 here, even though it didn't play a major role yet, I can see that it's not going to be something super huge. At least I don't think it will. I don't think the decision to change from spores to tendrils is necessarily going to be that big of an issue that's going to cause problems for the narrative. So I'm not bothered by it, but I do fully understand people that are. In the game, spores, you know, they get airborne, so you'd have to wear the masks in order to protect yourselves. Well, since there's no longer spores in the show, you don't really need to worry about that. So there's not a ton of like mask up moments kind of thing. And to me, that doesn't bother me too much, but it does make it much more like a normal zombie show where the only way to get the infection is through getting, you know, groped by the mouth tendrils stuffed. Like, I do get it. I understand that the airborne spores in the game make it a little more unique from just standard zombie schlock. But in the show, I just don't see what that would have added to even bother with it because you just put on a mask and all of a sudden everything's back to normal, right? So, you know, I'm sure they could have played around with it, but let's think about it in the game's way. Like, in the game, it wasn't necessarily about, like, oh, avoiding the infection because the spores are everywhere. It was really just all about the characters and their relationship and going through this fucking brutal world. So I feel like it just doesn't change a whole lot to just take the spores out and make it more about, like, direct transmission contact in the show. Now, maybe it gets bad later on, like maybe this does have a huge detrimental effect on the story going forward. I don't see that happening, but I do think it is possible. We're still obviously very early here, but right now, I'm not bothered by that change. Overall, I just feel like they've done an outstanding job adapting this property and also adding to it. The extra stuff they put in here that wasn't present in the game doesn't feel like extra stuff. It feels very good. It feels very at home in the universe. Like, it fleshes out the story even more. It adds to it. So I think they've just done a really great job so far. They've also added a couple new characters. Don't know exactly the size role they're going to play in the story going forward. I also hope that this serves as an example to all the major studios out there that keep just eating up IP like fucking Galactus and then just wiping their ass with it, producing some of the worst adaptations imaginable. I hope they'll look at this and the success of The Last of Us show, at least episode 1, and see that the reward is far greater if you just put in actual effort to adapt the properties the way they should be, faithful to the source material, and even bring on the people responsible for its creation in the first place. Neil Druckmann is clearly on board for this show, and it is very obvious. What should have been a no-brainer to absolutely everybody has apparently become super rare. You shouldn't be giving your IP to people that don't know anything about it and actively fucking dislike it, like with the Halo TV show. I'm hopeful that The Last of Us show will continue to be this good. Hopefully it even only gets better from this point forward. I'm actually very excited to see more of it, so just wanted to talk about this because what a nice, pleasant surprise. A breath of fresh air with a great video game adaptation. That's about it. So yeah.